the war-torn future of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, there's always some kind of planetary or galactic threat just about to rear its ugly head, and in Dawn of War 3 that sees the Space Marines of the Blood Ravens, the Elder and the Orcs all tussling for control of some kind of deadly superweapon. But what you're seeing here is in fact the multiplayer game and the new Power Core game mode, which mixes things up compared to the traditional control points or straight up deathmatch. You can see a few little tickles of the MOBA genre in there, as you have to destroy one of two enemy shield generators, which then let you attack one of two turrets, and finally you gain access to attack the Power Core, which is in or near the enemy bases. Played in 2v2, there's obviously a lot of tactical nuance here, not least because you can share certain abilities. The Elder, for example, can let Orcs or Space Marines use a tank of theirs as a mobile spawn point, but just simply being able to coordinate attacks just opens up a lot of ideas for you. However, even in just a 1v1 head-to-head, there's more than enough scope here for the fight to swing back and forth. Each time a shield generator is knocked out, it's a victory, but it doesn't necessarily spell your untimely demise, and you can quite easily just use that loss to springboard your own attack as the weakened enemy retreat. They might have won the skirmish, but you won't necessarily lose the battle as a whole. It's a compelling mode, that's for certain, and it's one that I really quite enjoy playing. The trick, however, will always be that Relic need to lure players across from the single player to trying out the multiplayer. Having that ever so slight touch of MOBA might help in that regard, but it's a gateway to a much more involved and deeper strategy game. As mentioned, there are three races to play as. You've got the Space Marines, the Elder and the Orcs, and obviously the Space Marines are going to be the all-rounders here with a nice mixture of heavily armoured and flexible units that can really stick it out in a fight. While their most traditional foes in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, the Orcs, they love to get up close and personal for a bit of melee combat, but do have a fair few ranged options of their own. The Orcs are really all about getting amped up and ready to fight in the wah, but the Elder are much more cool and calculating, specialising in fast hit and run attacks, striking hard and then fading away when the fight is not going their way. Each of the races have got a very different feel to them beyond just cosmetic differences. For example, the Orcs are particularly interesting in that they actually require an awful lot of micromanagement, which isn't really what you'd expect for them. You might go in thinking they're just going to have this headlong charge into the fray, and yes, that is something they can absolutely do, but getting ready for that, you need to creep across the battlefield, building the war towers that periodically drop scrap metal, and that scrap metal is so important to the Orcs because it's how you upgrade your units. You've got the basic war boys through to the hero units that you can summon to the battlefield, and they all have to pick up scrap every time you spawn them in order to upgrade them. There's none of the blanket upgrades here that the Space Marines and Elder have, and so you're always micromanaging, you're always clicking somewhere and getting the Orcs to do something. Dawn of War 3 tries to find this happy middle ground between the action of the first game and the more focused nature of the second, which introduced these hero characters. Hero characters do actually return in this game in the form of elites, which can be a single unit, which is a named hero, or perhaps an elite squad, but it also takes the scale and scope beyond that of original. You can throw dozens of units into the fray at once, and there's now even towering heroes such as the Imperial Knight Solaria or the Elder's Wraith Knight, which are more than twice the size of other units on the battlefield, if not 3 times. Being able to actually summon those heroes, however, takes a lot of effort. When you're setting up your army to play online, you pick 3 elite units and 3 battle doctrines for your army, which takes a very different and much more granular approach to Relic's previous game, Company of Heroes 2. When you're in battle, then you need to build up and use elite points, and these do build up over time naturally, but there are control points that will give you elite points, and those are quite natural places for the overall battle to congregate. Some elites will have lower costs, so they're good to bring in early on, but the most powerful elites will only be available right at the end of the battle, and yes, that does include the Imperial Knight Solaria and Elder Wraith Knight. Unlocking them and dropping them onto the field of battle can easily turn the fight in your favour, so you want to time it right, you want to protect that unit as well, and just get the most out of them when you do bring them in right at the death. There's a lot to like about Dawn of War 3, which I feel gets back to that sense of scale that the original had, but it's also got a few fair tricks of its own hidden up its sleeves. Personally, I'm more of a single-player RTS gamer, but if you do plan to head online, there is an intriguing nuance to each of the races. Yes, even the Space Marines can be a little bit interesting sometimes. Relic have done a great job of making me want to explore them all and figure out how they work. That's all we've got for this video, and I hope you have enjoyed it enough to click on like and maybe even subscribe to our channel for more of our content. Alternatively, you can head over to thesixthaxis.com where we've got written previews, reviews, news and tons of other gaming stuff. And so I hope you will join us again soon, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.
Wanna go with me? Oh, a power core is getting hit.